And earlier today, a presentation that we'll run through was posted as well. That presentation is really the only material you have today to sound like a school bell. I'm not sure what that was, but for the benefit of those that are here, the meeting is being streamed live again on route29solutions.org. And for anyone watching out there, if you watched last time, today's setup will be the same. You'll only see the one view from the back of the room, but you'll be able to hear us, and everything will be videotaped and available on VDOT's YouTube channel. The agenda is posted up here, and before we go through it, I'll just remind you that there were a few things at the end of the last meeting, items for this week's agenda: communications planning, and you'll see that as item 8 for today. A report from VDOT on the contractor's qualification meeting. We'll see that as item 3. Review of the design review schedules, which I think you'll be very interested in. We'll see that as item 7. An update on the packages, on the projects that are not part of the design build package. Best Buy, the adaptive signals, we'll see that today as well. And then an update on the design build projects themselves are kind of nestled into 3 different agenda items: 3, 4, 6, and 7. As we have every meeting, I know it may also seem redundant, but for the benefit of people that are here and anyone watching that may be watching for the first time, let's just go through a quick round of introductions, and we'll let Henry start this time.
Okay. Henry Weintrain, Express Towers Company.
Jim Talbert, City of Charlottesville.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Chuck Lebo, Lebo Commercial Properties.
Eddie Giles, Professional Movers Incorporated.
Chip Boyles with the Planning District Commission and MPO.
Pete Wishes, CMA Properties.
Thank you, and I'm Philip Shuquette. We do have some members here of our technical team. Dave, why don't you let everybody know who's here?
I am Dave Covington. I'm a Regional Transportation Program Manager overseeing the 29 Solutions projects for VDOT.
Chuck Proctor, I'm with Planning Section and Culpeper District, VDOT.
I'm Paul Prideaux, Engineering Consultant for VDOT.
Ken Connors, I'm the District Construction Engineer.
John Lynch, Culpeper District Administrator.
Joel D'Annunzio, Residency Administrator, Charlottesville VDOT.
And our camera driver.
Lou Hatter, Communications Manager.
And Sergeant, would you mind introducing yourself, sir?
Miller Stoddard, I'm Sergeant of the Albemarle County Police Department. I'm the Sergeant of the traffic.
Probably should mention the county asked the ACPD to get involved, because as we look at when construction begins, we want to make sure the police are informed so that they can deploy their forces as needed to help mitigate any congestion issues or anything like that. So it's not here for crowd control.
Or to hurt anyone. Yeah. No, thank you very much, Sergeant. Appreciate it. And Morgan, you and Mark just want to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. Morgan Butler, the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Thanks, Mark. For those who left their notebooks, your notebooks have the new information in it, and Morgan and Henry, yours was at your desk, so you can do your own notebooking. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead to the presentation, Lou, if you don't mind.
Real quick, Phil.
Yes, sir.
The Secretary yesterday mentioned the Highway Trust Fund, and for those who aren't transportation geeks like myself, it might be worth for some and those listening to kind of explain a little bit what's going on there. And it's been funded until May, but our projects obviously go way beyond that, and how this really impacts our project.
Yeah, I'm probably not the best guy to explain all of that, but I'll give you the down low. Morgan may actually follow it closer than I do. I've been in transportation for 40-some years, and for 40 years we go through this every cycle. of the federal transportation funding plan. The bill expires. Leading up to expiration, everybody talks about how dangerous it is to let the Highway Trust Fund expire, or go broke, certainly, or become bankrupt because it threatens federal funding. It used to be that we would leave one bill and come up with a new bill that was usually 3, 4, 5 years long. Lately, it's been more of a habit of short-term fixes that kind of delay the inevitable. That's sort of the process we're in now. Again, clearly, if the Highway Trust Fund goes bankrupt and states don't receive federal aid, we'll have something else to talk about, or maybe nothing else to talk about. That hasn't happened in the past. If you're inclined to support transportation and support the federal funding of transportation projects, it's something you're probably interested in speaking with the people that represent you about. Morgan, I know you guys follow this pretty close.
I think it's a pretty good summary. It was pointed out yesterday, and as Philip just said, they essentially kicked the can down the road now through May, and they're going to have to confront it again before May.
Yeah, before May. Before May. John? Or you can stay there.
Not to interrupt your presentation.
No, thank you, John. All right. Was that good, Brad? Or
Yeah,
Aubrey's got it down. I mean, it's a pretty big role for him and his 49 partners across the country, or to work together on seeing that funding, federal funding, the new bill, whatever it might be eventually. And from over the years, it'll change. I mean, for a long time, that bill was very much focused on new construction, completing the interstate highway system. Then it was much more about, well, let's think a little bit more about sustainability and how we use what we have, how do new environmental rules come into play, and a host of other things.
And the current bill that they're operating on is called MAP 21. They usually give it a little cutesy name. Started off with ICE-T.
I used to know them all by heart, but I've tried to forget them.
The current bill that's still being debated on GROW America, I think it is.
Is that what the
right,
new one
guys?
is? GROW.
Look at the VDOT guys. I think it's GROW, G-R-O-W.
If
you're interested in finding out what direction things are going, performance measurement is usually the hot topic these days.
It is. It's also why I tried to focus my more attention on actually getting something built. Can you go to the third one there, Lou? We said we would, and we will keep our kind of public interaction piece as our second agenda item for every meeting. The last meeting, there were 24 viewers of live stream who tuned in 104 times. The average stream time about 20 minutes. Understandably, fewer people watching now than maybe were watching the first panel. This is a little dry until we get into a more fun period. Lou, go ahead. Once again, there were 3 comments submitted, I should say 3 more comments submitted through the website, route29solutions.org. One was to build a southern bypass around Lynchburg and not to do anything on Route 29 north of Charlottesville until a bypass around Charlottesville is built. A lot of people feel that way. About half the comments that we got through the first panel would have said the same thing, but we've kind of moved on beyond that. The next one said that the Rio Road intersection improvement is not going to help congestion and it's not justified, and and recommend modeling and a construction schedule to help residents understand the project. I guess there, and it ties to the last comment, which was really just a question, what's the goal of the Ryle Road intersection? Well, the Ryle Road grade separated intersection will help congestion, and it was determined to be justified. There will be modeling done, and there will be a construction schedule that will help residents understand the what of what is going to happen. We'll talk a little bit more about that today, and I think we'll be prepared to talk about schedules in even more detail at the next meeting, but let's wait till we get there. The goal of the Ryle Road intersection is basically meets the charge that the Secretary gave us back in March to improve mobility through the corridor and congestion in the corridor. Now, I want to be clear as I can be there. You know, I think the Ryle Road grade separated intersection will help congestion. I believe it meets the charge that the Secretary gave us during the first panel. I understand that a lot of people don't agree, and I appreciate the disagreement. It's just that we've moved past that. We've moved past the point of debating whether or not we're going to do the project, and now we have to pay attention to how we're going to do it. And Secretary and I talked this morning. He reviewed with me his discussion with the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors last night, and the feeling that, you know, some of you may feel like you're not being listened to, and that's sort of a shame on me. I don't mean to give the thought that you're not being listened to by any stretch of the imagination. But I can't offer any guarantee that every suggestion is going to result in an action. That would be difficult because not every suggestion agrees either. So I want to assure you that I think your work here is important. Look, we've only had 2 meetings. This is our 3rd meeting. At the first meeting, we talked about Hillsdale South and how maybe it didn't make a lot of sense to build that to Holiday, and rather than do that, we ought to study it all the way to 250. And several of you thought that was important, and we made that change in the package. That's what VDOT's going to do now. Between the first meeting and the second meeting, there was opportunity for some input into the request for qualifications. And I think we got 8 suggestions, and 7 of them carried forward into that package. That may seem a little bit more paperwork and bureaucratic than the actual meat of the design, but still that's important, and that happens to be where we are in the process right now, still in this request for qualifications and then later for the request for proposals. Your input is important. While we may not be a decision-making body, we've got people sitting around the table that are, and I can assure you that they're listening, and I can assure you personally that I'm going to do my very best to represent your collective wishes, and I'm also going to bark if I think that we're getting off track somewhere. I mean, John and I have worked together before, and if we run into an area where there might be a disagreement, we'll sit and talk through it. So we are making an impact. You're certainly making an impact, and I certainly hope everyone will continue to participate, because if we don't participate, kind of know where that leads.
What were the 7 changes that were made?
The changes had to do mostly with some wording around adding calculated risk as opposed to just managing risk, We added some qualification elements that were, I'm going to have to flip back to last week because I don't want to tell you wrong, John. We summarized them last week. We added that a sentence to indicate that Rio's connection to Berkmar, Hillsdale, and the John Winter Parkway was important. We changed measured risk to calculated risk. We clarified the number of local lanes and lanes that had to be maintained at the Rio Road interchange. We added an inclusion for experience that to demonstrate that there was experience of constructing projects in urban corridors. The one we didn't make was a suggestion to consider shortlisting more than just the 3 top firms, and that wasn't made primarily because in VDOT's procurement process for design-build projects, they found that sticking with only the top 3 firms, regardless of the score between the 3rd firm and the 4th firm, was important in terms of any protests they received from the shortlisting process. So that's the one that wasn't made.
So how many local lanes are going to stay operational?
2 turn lanes, 2 through lanes, and a right turn lane.
On either side.
Yes, excuse me, on either side. On either side. And that was actually the clarification that was made to be sure that we're talking about both sides, not just 2 turn lanes total. And that was clarified in the RFQ that did go out about the time our meeting ended last week. The RFQ went out. Okay?
Thank you.
Start. Yes, Henry.
Some of us have trouble with just words when we don't have diagrams. Engineers, it's a disease.
I know.
When I saw the turn lanes, 2 through lanes, 2 turn lanes, will those 2 turn lanes run for the entire extension of the trench, parallel to the trench? Or are they just running for a short while and then they blend into just 2 lanes? Essentially, my question is, there are 2 lanes, they're definitely adjacent to where the wall is going to be. The 2 turn lanes, will they run for the entire extension of the wall or not?
The 2 turn lanes in each direction would start. Well, first, we haven't seen the conceptual designs yet, right? But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. But they would essentially start when traffic starts to be separated. The purpose is to maintain the two through lanes and 2 turn lanes in each direction that exist today.
So essentially, there'll be 4 lanes, regardless if they're turn lanes or not. There'll be 4 lanes side by side.
Well, 5 if you count the right turn.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Okay.
But let's get
That's all.
okay.
That's all I want to know.
Okay.
So can I, really quickly, it's not so
Yes.
much a question, but I was lucky enough to attend the RFQ meeting held by VDOT
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
one day,
Right.
whatever it was.
July 31st.
I can't say enough of how much emphasis was placed, and there were over 30 firms, I guess, represented in the
Yeah,
room.
we'll
It was a
review
full
that.
house. Business access, continuous flow in turn lanes, and communication was mentioned to the point I lost count, trying to stress the priorities. I think John and his staff did an excellent job of not just putting it into the written documents, but stressing to each one of these potential offerers how important that was. And it was great for me to hear.
Well, good. Well, it certainly, that's another example of the effect and from the input of this panel and the previous panel on this entire process. And I want to say a little bit more about that later. Something just came to my head. John, we'll want to catch up from specifically a piece of information from 2 weeks ago about the restrictions that will be around when work can be done actually in that intersection. I think you'll be interested in knowing more about that. In addition to feedback from the website, I got a couple of emails from people that I forwarded to VDOT. One was a suggestion to extend the sidewalk to Polo Grounds on the Route 29 widening project, and I think you're doing that. Yes, I believe. Another was to remove the Angus Road traffic signal and to grade separate hydraulic rather than riot. So those were two comments that came in from the public that weren't in the website that I forwarded on to today. The request for qualifications meeting, this meeting that Chip was just talking about, if you take, I think there were 60 people there. 12 were associated with VDOT and Federal Highway Administration, so there were 48 people from various companies. Out of those 48, 13 contractors were represented. And the information meeting attendance list is on VDOT's website. That's a link to it that I will send to you if you're interested in seeing the attendance list. There were 7 general questions asked during the meeting. It's not at all unusual for there not to be a lot of questions asked at these meetings initially, because inside of your questions invariably lie maybe a little bit of your strategy, and you don't give that away in front of all your buddies. So that's seems pretty normal to me. And the information or the presentation that Chip talked about is also on the website at this link, and I'd be happy to send that presentation to you if you would like to see it. So I will do that.
Can you or John give us a sense of what those typical recurring 7 questions were?
Dave.
Most of the questions involved procurement issues. How do we show this project on our work history form? Some procedural issues. There was a question asked about would VDOT consider posting rolling answers to questions on the website as opposed to answering them all at one time. The public relations manager is a pass-fail rating position in the RFQ, so they want some clarification. Did that mean 0 or 10, or pass-fail as in if you fail, we reject your proposal? There was a question about what had been done to date to coordinate with the utility owners, and we had held a meeting with all of the identifiable utility owners. They asked if the minutes and the sign-in sheet from that intersection. That will be forthcoming in the RFP, but we'll also provide a description in our responses next Thursday on the 14th, response to those questions.
Is it good, John? Okay. Go ahead. I think it's important for us to continue to kind of follow this schedule, since this is what most of our business will be about between now and the end of the year. We met the deadline for getting the RFQ out. The RFQ information meeting was just, we talked about July 31st. The deadline for the contractors to submit questions to VDOT is today. So today, VDOT will have the questions that they're going to have coming out of that meeting. VDOT's going to respond to these on August the 14th. And the statement of qualifications that will be submitted by contractor will be due the same day as our next meeting, August the 28th. So on August 28th, if you're a contractor and you've paired up with a designer and you're interested in going for the design build package of the project, you'll submit your statement of qualifications on August the 28th. VDOT will complete their review and evaluation of those statements of qualifications on September the 18th, and on September the 25th, 3 top-ranked firms will be notified that they are on the short list for receiving the request for proposals. So that would get us through the qualification process by September 2025. The request for proposal then will be issued to the 3 shortlisted firms on October the 2nd. On October the 9th, they'll have VDOT will hold a general information and utility meeting, because utilities are a big deal. Contractors want to know about utilities on October the 9th. On October the 23rd, VDOT will meet privately with the shortlisted firms. Those will be, here's where the harder questions get asked, because now you're not giving away your strategy in front of your competitors. An addendum, if it's necessary, and without knowing anything, I would say I will be surprised if an addendum isn't necessary. Would be, if one is necessary, be issued on November the 6th. Another round of proprietary meetings. Technical proposals due December the 4th. The evaluation of technical proposals by January the 5th. In blue, let's go ahead, so we'll finish by January the 5th. Price proposals, January the 7th. These will all be checked for conformance to make sure all the material that's necessary to be submitted is submitted. Price proposals will be open on January the 9th, and a notice of intent to award to a
They have a requirement agreement to review it in 21 days, and that's what we've shown on the schedule. We hope to get it sooner than that, keeping them involved in the process.
Thank you, John. Do we know why the phone keeps ringing? Is that a problem?
We lost the
I'm
feed.
not sure we have the feed up right now. I'm trying to get a hold of
Okay.
Rudy.
All right, okay. Well, we'll keep going. Sorry. So between now and the end of this year, and then on to the end of spring of next year, we will be still in the process of looking at qualifications and then looking at proposals and selecting a contractor. That may seem a bit boring and not as exciting as looking at the reviews. This is an aggressive schedule. VDOT took a good, I'd say, 60 to 90 days off of the regular schedule of this process to get to this point, but it's important work because we have to get the contractor on board before the contractor will really start turning out designs that we can review. We're going to see a schedule of these reviews a little bit later in the agenda. Okay, we're going to come back to these dates every meeting. We'll work through them quickly, but they're important dates, and I just want to make sure we keep them in front of us, and I want to make sure we keep putting check marks beside them to indicate that we met the days, the schedule that we said we would meet. Okay, the next item on our agenda is item 6, and that's the Berkmar location public hearing. Ooh, I think it's the, yeah. Did I skip one, Luke?
Yeah, item 5.
Sorry about that. I did. Let's, 5 normally comes after 6, so or after 4. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to that. Sorry. At the last meeting, when we talked about agenda items, you said, hey, it's important for us to not only keep up on the design build package, but also on the projects that are not in the design build package. And as you'll recall, that's the ramp at Best Buy, the Hillsdale extension that's going to be managed by continue to be managed by the City of Charlottesville, and the adaptive signals. So, Dave, would you go ahead and give us an update on the 250-29 ramp at Best Buy?
Yes, sir. Just today, a couple of important events are occurring. The project received design approval for public hearing this morning, so it can move forward with regard to design approval. This evening, there is a meeting to discuss the sound walls on the project with the local residents. It was determined that sound walls were warranted and feasible. However, all the residents may not want the sound walls, so that meeting occurs this evening. The estimate for PE right-of-way and construction is $17 million, $17,150,000. It's currently on track to go to advertisement for construction in December of this year, with construction beginning in the spring and an anticipated completion date of July 2016.
Okay. Dave, why don't you just say briefly what design approval means, and then if I'm not, I think this is correct, these meetings on sound walls are normal and customary for any project that has sound walls.
They are. Design approval is a critical mile point in a project where we go through the public hearing process, we receive all the comments from the public, we respond to those comments, we incorporate changes in the plans based on those comments, and once all of that has occurred, as reviewed at the executive level of VDOT, and they issue design approval, which means that we've met all the obligations for the public hearing process, we've incorporated public comments in the plan development process, and that project is therefore authorized to move forward. Yeah. It could not move forward to construction without design approval.
Right, exactly.
Does that mean we won't see the design until it is designed by the contractor that is awarded the project? I mean, is there going to be any kind of preliminary design that we'll see, or that the public can view prior to project being
For,
awarded.
for Best Buy?
Yes,
Yes.
Well, those plans have been publicly available
Yeah.
for quite some time.
they are.
That's what I-
Yes, sir.
Maybe we could see those sometime.
And that public hearing was, I don't even remember.
Actually,
2012.
so there's been a lot of revisions. Part of that has been the development of the sound walls as part of that project.
Could that design be brought to us?
Yes, sir. Yes,
At your
sir.
meeting?
Yes, sir.
Now, that project is essentially fully designed or almost fully designed.
Yes, sir.
So it's really ready to
Yeah.
go to bids.
Yes.
Essentially, it's almost shovel-ready, other than the process of bidding and so on.
There's still some internal things that have to be done at VDOT. That's why the advertisement date is in December. We're working on project schedules, construction estimates. It has to, I think it's already been through value engineering. We have to work out the sound wall issue, because if the residents don't want the sound walls, then those can be removed from the design at that point. But essentially, it is ready to move forward.
The sound walls can be handled with an ultimate bid for different
That's correct.
inclusion or not inclusion. I mean, that seems to be something that you can do very easily. And if we're talking about mobility on 29, let's face it, the bottleneck is the Best Buy ramp and the lane starting at Hydraulic Road, which is part of the project, right?
Yes, sir.
So
There's, part of the other reason for a December add date is it allows us to use the wintertime for that procurement phase, so that construction can begin in the spring as opposed to starting in December, where you're putting down temporary asphalt paving or something like that is a real challenge. So it aligns well with the procurement process, but there are those legal processes that VDOT has to go through in order to go to advertising as well. So even though the design is essentially complete, there's still some functions that need to occur before it goes there.
I'm somewhat surprised that this big project that is still somewhat vague, we're pushing at 100 miles an hour, and that project that is fully designed, we're going at regular, low, normal speed. I find that a little bit confusing.
Well, I can help explain the confusion, or add to it. No, I can help explain the confusion a bit. The Best Buy, I just can't get away from calling it the Best Buy ramp. I'm sorry about it. Trying to do better, but the Best Buy ramp project was underway in the engineering process as a design bid build project, different from the design build, meaning that VDOT was going to design it, have designs ready, and when Dave says go to add, what he really means is ask contractors for prices to construction prices, not RFQ, RFP stuff. The Best Buy ramp project was not fully funded for construction. So it had moved through the design part of the process. When we came out of the first panel, the Route 29 solutions package recommended, and the CTB did, fully fund the project. So now it's ready to go to construction, which before it didn't have enough money to fully fund it and move it to construction.
Yeah, the money just wasn't there.
The money wasn't there. The money wasn't there. So now the money's there and it's moving as fast as it can move.
Well, there's a lot of other components that
Yeah.
you mentioned. There's still some utilities that need to be relocated. There's some slivers of right-of-way that need to be acquired. There's specifications that need to be developed.
else on Best Buy?
Could he send us the link to the design so we could take a look at it?
Yeah, those plans are not on the website, but we can make them available.
Yeah, because there's going to be certain things they're interested in looking at those plans, and a whole lot that they're probably not.
It's a healthy stack of plan sheets.
Well, yeah, I hear this project, there is a lot of attention that has to be paid to things to make it work, right of way, utilities, whatever, and it's a small project. And there we have this big project that is still totally indefined, and here, we're going to do this in no time. I'm sorry, but one of the two things got to give. If you can do that big project in no time, you can do this little project in no time too. And if you cannot do this project in no time, then we're not doing that big project in no time. I don't think so.
We're not doing any
Unless we
project
treat
in
it
no
totally
time.
different.
Okay? We're not doing any
You know what I
project
mean by no
in
time.
no time. I know what you mean. I know
This
what
one
you
is-
mean.
This big thing that is undefined at this point, because it's not designed yet, not even conceptually, we have a tight schedule, and
Yes, we do.
money is now our object, and we're going ahead full blast, full steam in this project, which is nice, it's pretty much done. We know a lot about it, and it's going slow, and we're going to see what color this sound barrier is going to have, and stuff like that. And
Right.
I think we have a contradiction going on here, and, you know, to get some credibility out of VDOT, this project should be expedited, so it's definitely done. No, what is it, the term you use, no excuses, whatever.
No excuses. No excuses.
Maybe by the
Okay.
end of 2015, so that by the time Rio starts, that thing is totally done and working, and everybody's happy.
Let us go back and look at, I mean, I hear you. Let's look at the schedule. Let's look at the schedule so we make a reasoned response, back to the point Pete brought up. There's no reason to say, no, we can't do it today, but we don't want to say the wrong thing either. So let's take some time and look at that schedule and see what we think that advertisement in August for a location hearing for Berkmar that'll take place in September, which, if everything goes well, would result in a recommendation to the CTB in October. There's like stuff going on all over the place today. Sorry. If you're watching and frustrated online, I apologize. Any questions about the Berkmar location hearing, Mark?
Do they have a time and place yet for the meeting?
We are working on that. The preferred location is the DoubleTree, which is very close to the project site and very accommodating. Generally, these meetings are held in the evening, 2 or 3 hours, but obviously we'll make sure that we're available as long as it takes. We've talked about a couple of backup locations, but we think that DoubleTree is going to be our ideal spot.
Thank you.
Yes, Henry. Well, I'm sorry, Chuck. I'm sorry. Henry, then Chuck.
Buford. On Berkmar, for the location public hearing, what level of graphic materials will be available to the public?
Dave.
We will have multiple alignments on aerial orthophoto background, so that's like a Google image picture, so you'll be able to see the alignment of the road. It will not have details. You won't see curb and gutter, but you'll see generally where the road goes. We are required to look at multiple alignments, and we choose the best alignment for numerous reasons. Business impacts, residential impacts, impacts to water crossings, and other environmental features. So we are going to select that least environmentally damaging alternative and move forward with that at the location public hearing.
So essentially you have several alternative possible right-of-ways. That's essentially what you have.
Yes, sir.
And each one of those needs to be researched, and you have to find the tombs and all the cemeteries that are hidden there.
Yes, sir. We are doing that now.
You have people right now looking.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we don't have too many hiccups. Okay. And the next question is, after the public hearing, I see that there's a whole bunch between the public hearing, which is a necessity, I understand that, and the approval recommendation. Why does it take 4 weeks?
The October 15th date is the date of the Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting. So we have to get on the schedule.
Yeah, I understand.
So VDOT will have to know about 10 days after the 16th. VDOT will have to have a good idea that they're ready to make a recommendation to the CTB to get on the agenda for the October 15th.
One of the alternatives.
Yes, yes.
So it sounds like that this is already designed.
No.
It's not.
It is in preliminary design right now. We are collecting information along that corridor, survey, geotechnical information, cultural resources to help make these decisions. But while that is going on, we're sketching out some alignments and getting an idea of what earthwork will be like. It's not a design.
But Chuck, when he says sketching out an alignment, for me and you, it's kind of a big line on a map, not a design.
And Dave, you've been already meeting with the residents too, out there?
Yes, sir. This morning we met with, the sole residential property along that corridor.
Yeah.
If this produces the amount of traffic that you hope that it does, will it necessitate a traffic light at Berkmar and Route 29?
There's already a traffic light.
It's a stop sign.
Berkmar and Ryo? It's a traffic light.
No, Berkmar and Route 29 by shopping.
Berkmar 29.
Starbucks.
Oh, that's
Tiffy
what you're
Loop.
saying.
Tiffy Loop.
We have some ideas on that. Obviously, all of those recommendations will come out of a traffic engineering analysis. We don't know if there will be a permanent signal at that location. So we have some conceptual ideas on how we might route traffic through that area, especially during construction. But in the post-2017, post-construction year, we do not know that at this point.
Does Berkmar go to 4 lanes on the whole deal as part of this design?
Yes, sir, we're
Just
planning,
Where do you start on the southern part of your plan?
just south of Hilton Heights Road, that intersection, we're planning on kind of tying into the existing roadway there. We're looking currently at providing a 2-lane bridge and a 2-lane roadway all the way north to the Hollymead development. If the budget allows, we would like to acquire the right-of-way for a future expansion to a 4-lane divided highway. But again, if budget allows. And we would provide pedestrian and bicycle facilities on the mentioned.
So, will you have on your maps parcel information as far as what these lines potentially will cut through what parcels?
Yes.
Is it possible that the bridge at least be constructed for 4 lanes?
We've evaluated that initially, and we don't think our budget can handle constructing what effectively would have to be a second bridge for a roadway that may be built 30 years in the future. So we don't think it's economically viable.
Seems like a missed opportunity to not have the capacity.
Providing a 4-lane section.
But, I mean, it's just, if you're there.
Well, the question becomes, can the infrastructure at the Hollymead development handle 4-lane section coming in? It may be a choke point.
So it will end at Hollymead rather than carry it through to Airport Road.
It will tie into the existing roundabout at Town Center Drive and Meeting Street.
Okay.
Now, obviously, in the future, if the demand grows and development occurs, then certainly the developer could drive that future expansion.
Is there any consideration of tying Ashwood Boulevard over to Brookmore Extension?
There's consideration, but there has not been discussion about actually including that to this package of projects.
Seems like you could bring a lot of neighborhoods down Brookmore and take pressure off of 29 if that were considered. I imagine you have. How far it's gone.
Philip, if this group feels pretty strongly about suggestions like that, how can we try to really keep pushing?
I would appreciate if you would send them to me, so I don't say, oh, I heard somebody say a piece of this.
And I agree with Pete on that. I mean, connecting Ashwood and then not building a 4-lane bridge is such a missed opportunity, but definitely not connecting Ashwood. So, I mean, if other panel members agree, I would say we should probably speak up a little bit about that, because
absolutely. We need to get the feedback in, and then we need to balance that against the budget and see how it all works. But
I'll go hat in hand to the CTV and say, look, you're full not to make that.
There are a lot of different ways to do things, but I mean, Pete, would you articulate that?
Yes, sir. I wanted first to get a temperature check and see where we were, if it was being considered, and if it's not, I'll.
So the bridge as well as Ashwood?
I think Ashwood would be a logical consideration.
Okay. To me, it looks like Ashwood is a no-brainer. And if nothing else, you want to acquire a right-of-way.
Yeah.
So that way, even if you don't have the money, at least you have the right-of-way, and hopefully then.
You can always get proffer.
When you have the money, you build the rest.
This meeting will not last 13 hours.
I think that's a given, what Pete suggested there.
Okay.
Totally logical.
Okay. Let's carry this forward. Okay. I wanted to give you an idea of, we could call this the Henry slide. No, I wanted to give you an idea of when we can expect various types of reviews, and I wanted to give it to you in a way that wasn't overly complicated at this point. So I used Rio because I think it's fair to say there's a a lot of interest in how we're going to have an opportunity to review different things as it relates to design now, not general stuff, but design at RIO. And as a backdrop, to just add some context, right now we have a schedule that has 189 specific steps on it. 189 specific steps. Some of those steps we have a lot more information about than others. So Dave and me, the whole group will continue to be looking at this schedule. But this schedule looks at every step in the process. Those steps we were talking about, how can this move so fast when Brookmar had to, Best Buy had to go through all these other steps. We're going through all these same processes. These, I believe, are ones that, not I believe, I know, that will be very interesting. At the next meeting, we, by all means, should have a concept drawing for RIO. Now, what will that mean? That will mean that, as Dave mentioned last meeting, there are engineers doing some preliminary work on the design-build packages. Not design, but some preliminary conceptual work that will be part of that request for proposals that contractors get in October. So next meeting, we'll have an opportunity to look at those early concept drawings. Not designs, but they're more than the picture that you've seen before.
Essentially, it tells us where all the lanes are going to be, and
it starts to answer a lot of those questions.
All the rest of the engineering will be based on that, with maybe minor modifications. Right. It tells us where is what.
It tells us a lot of important information. But then just keep in mind for the rest of this, for context, because you're going to say, why is there such a big gap here? Well, the big gap here is we're bringing a contractor on board. So none of this will be done by VDOT using the engineers that are on board now to do these concept drawings. The next steps will be done by the design build team once a contractor is on board. And I think that context is important because it helps answer some of your questions of, well, why can't we see these designs now? Because they don't exist. So next meeting, concepts. One of the first things that the contractor is going to start working on, remember, if you remember March 4th, I think it was, March 4th is the day we expect to give a contractor a notice to proceed, March the 4th. One of the first things that contractor is going to be doing is take a few months to work on a maintenance of traffic plan. You're going to be interested in reviewing and having input into this maintenance of traffic plan. Also, one of the early things you're going to be doing is working on utility relocation plans. Those are also going to be something that you're going to want to see and have an opportunity to review and provide some input to VDOT and the contractor, because this contractor is going to be required to have somebody here that is accessible to us. So the utility relocation plans also March, April timeframe. In the early time frame, April, May, there'll be some rough grading plans that you'll want to see, because those are going to show how work's being done, not just in the intersection, but outside the intersection, what some of those plans are. And there will be 3, and I want to ask Dave describe maybe these three packages, but there will be 3 packages of roadway and bridge plans that the contractor will submit. They'll come in April, June, and July. And we'll have an opportunity to see those packages and provide input in April, June, and July. But Dave, could you just discuss the 3 packages and why 3?
Yeah, well, VDOT has what's called a concurrent engineering process, and the steps are very well laid out as to how projects are developed. And generally, there are 3 times when we require a consultant, a design builder, a contractor, internal VDOT people, whomever that may be, to submit plans for VDOT to review at each one of these stages. They may be 30%, 60%, 90%, 30, 70, 100, something in that vicinity, so that we can be just a couple of hour meeting, especially with, how much information we'll have to go over. But we're looking at some sort of extended meeting. We have not worked out those details yet, but we will moving forward. But one thing that I do want to mention is that this also keys into this November timeframe. There's two important things we want to achieve before the end of the year, or approximately by the end of the year. Is one, holding the public hearing before the last addendum date of the RFP process. So if something comes out of that, some comment, just it completely changes our thinking on the project, we can incorporate that in our procurement process. There won't be any sort of change later. The design builder will be able to price that change at that time. Then the other thing is it reduces our risk moving forward because we will achieve design approval, as we mentioned before, which is an important milestone before award of this contract. So it reduces VDOT's risk, it reduces the design builder's risk, and quite honestly, reduces the public's risk.
Speaking to Pete's point, then, the addendum date is November the 6th.
If I remember correctly, we were planning for the beginning of November for the public hearing.
For the hearing.
So is that I can't remember if we had another addendum date. It allows us time because we also have alternate schedules. So if
Right,
we need
right.
to adjust, we can.
A comment for the record as well.
Getting back to time
Yes.
frames, you said that the Berkmar location public hearing would be September of this year, but the design public hearing will not be until July of next year. Why such a long time frame?
Because for Berkmar and Chuck, there has been no preliminary work done at all. It's basically a new project on new location, and once the design builder is brought on board, he's going to be starting from a different level of detail on Berkmar. And he's also going to be working on the other designs. Lou, can you, or you want me to move that to the next one? Somebody? Lou, just out of curiosity, did we lose the connection?
Apparently lost the internet feed.
Boy, that's a bummer. But we'll still have something that we can post up for the public?
That's why I've got the camera.
You're the camera guy.
We'll do what we can.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, can't be. At the last meeting, we talked about the fact that Chip had a meeting between the MPO, Albemarle County, and VDOT to talk about a sort of a comprehensive boots on the ground communications outreach plan. And we nominated you to give us an update on
That's funny, that
Chip.
group did too, so, in common there. I prepared some notes in great detail, but just want to, in lieu of time and your own interest and mine, is just to summarize in that we had the meeting, the City of Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and VDOT and the MPO to talk about how best we could bring not only added value and supplemental communication techniques to what VDOT was already very well working on. They were able to share a draft communications plan that they had begun to work on for this project. to supplement theirs, supplement their work, supplement what this panel's doing, as well as making sure to bring a local flair to it. Things that we knew were specific to this project and this community. And at the same time, too, making sure that if we began working together early, the community, whether we're talking about the business community, the neighborhoods, the traveling public, they were hearing one voice come back and not something from the MPO that may sound a little bit different than what VDOT was giving. So we held that meeting, felt very comfortable with the way the communications plan that VDOT was preparing. We do believe that there is an opportunity for the group working together to bring in a lot more stakeholders, some that may be permanent throughout, like emergency services and law enforcement, as well as some that may be periodic, a neighborhood group that may be interested up front, but not so interested towards the end. So a fluid committee that could be discussing this all along, and something that could be reported back to this panel. During the discussions, too, we found that probably more important than the communications avenue is having a group of decision makers that could hear what the needs are coming from the business community, from the neighborhoods, from all the stakeholders, and make an immediate difference, make an immediate impact with some actual forms of assistance. And perhaps I can explain probably by an example, is in doing the research and looking at methods of communication, we found some examples across the country where Madison, Wisconsin prepared a How to Survive a Construction Zone for Businesses manual. And they went through a number of things so that proactively local governments working with businesses could address certain needs before they became immediate needs. One of those things suggested in this manual was quite often in these big projects, local businesses need waivers of off-premise advertising. Well, as you all know, you can't just go and overnight change an ordinance, a sign ordinance. Something like that may need to be amended temporarily during a construction project. This group could hear those kinds of needs, and people would be on that panel to be able to discuss it here, as well as then take it to their respective bodies and offer that recommendation. So this group met, and what the MPO's role is that we have volunteered to put this into more of a formal kind of outline, how we could work with both this panel, with VDOT, and with the community, and put together a plan of really what the charge would be, the vision, the mission, the types of strategies that we would be looking to implement, present it back to the group, and see what the best method, if at all, to move that forward. We believe that there'll certainly be the need for it. It will go even beyond the communications with VDOT, but also to make those immediate types of changes that may be needed, and hopefully proactively rather than reactionary, but be in place that if something needs to be done quickly, we could react as well.
Who would be the we, Chip?
Well, the ad hoc group was just those that we mentioned earlier. What would have to be decided is who would be that point person, who would be bringing the group together, very similar to what you're doing for this panel, but it could very well be the MPO taking that lead role, which I think would be a very objective kind of third-party group, but it could also be somebody from the private sector. If we felt a consultant was needed, one of the governments, again, that has to be hashed out.
My only thought there is you need to have somebody.
You've got to
be in charge.
Most definitely. So that's where we are. The MPO expects to, prior to this panel's next meeting, that we have this draft document back before that group, have them take a look at it, get their recommendations and changes, and see if it's something that we should be moving forward on. And again, how better we can communicate with all the parties, because as VDOT's communication plan showed very quickly, their first cut of stakeholders, I want to say, was 40 groups maybe. I mean, it's a long, long list of people who are going to be directly affected by the construction going on. I mean, you know, not only do we have this project, the 3 projects of Route 29, we've got the other indirect projects that are all under construction, just like McIntyre, that need to all be encompassed into this discussion.
Okay, and you would have that before, so that's something we could bring back to this group in August 28th?
Yes, that's what we're shooting for.
Chief, one thing I want you to be aware, that the business community is not just worried about what happens during construction, which can be very negative, and we've seen what happened in McIntyre. The biggest concern is what happens after construction. That business may be marginalized completely by the effects of the new traffic patterns. And that is really where the meat of this whole issue is. What can be done to make the traffic pattern such that the business after construction will still have enough traffic in front of their driveway that may make their business still viable? It's not a question of reducing the bottom line. It's a question of going into the red and disappearing. And on top of it, your property now is valued lost less than it was because you got a lousy location. You have no traffic in front of your door. So we need some good strategy that maybe we can come up here by looking at the current plans, the plans presented to the previous panel. There were several alternates presented. Find a way of meshing those so that the traffic in front of the existing businesses after construction will still be 80–85% of what it is today. Because if it turns out to be 5% of what it is today, those businesses can kiss themselves goodbye. The employees will be gone. They'll be looking for jobs somewhere else. And those properties are worth much, much less than on some crossroad. All they get is the term traffic, you know, if you don't do something very specific. And that is really where the Business Committee has been fretting for 30 years. This whole debate, bypass, no bypass, whatever, it always hinged on that. The Business Committee was always willing to lose 15% of the volume, you know, of car volume by going to a bypass. That if you happen to be in that stretch, that 1 mile stretch of this project, and after the project is done and you suffer through it, and all of a sudden you look out the door, and there is only 1 car out of 10 going by your front door, that gas station is not going to be there. As a matter of fact, if the owners are smart, they close it before the project starts. And the tax base goes with it. I guess in this community, we don't worry too much about the tax base, but that's a separate topic.
Well, and I definitely think that's the type of thing that we immediately started seeing, for instance, in some of the other states and other cities' manuals for survival were beyond just the construction and the traffic, but to make suggestions, perhaps offer incentives, work permitting-wise to, I mean, it just comes to mind, one of the recommendations, very similar to you said, though not quite as drastic as to close your doors before the construction, just to get that over with. But one of the suggestions is, if you're a property owner and you're anticipating a renovation project and you have the funding for it, then's a perfect time to do it. You know,
if you know that after the project is finished,
right,
you still have a business there that's viable.
It's very, you would have to show me some examples of where, when government makes a transportation improvement, property values plummet for businesses.
I will spend time with you.
I've spent enough time in this industry to see that if you build a bypass over a business, yes, it's going to take business away. But if you build bypass over a house, the day the shovels hit the ground, that property plummets. Yeah, there are.
We can talk about it, you and me one-on-one.
There's plenty of evidence to show that it is our responsibility as a government to make these investments in response to the growth. Because, I mean, I would have to say, Philip and I talked about this earlier, and that is, some people are like, well, we don't need to make any changes at all. Traffic is just fine. Go to DC, it's really bad. Well, that's true. To some degree, there's some opinion that traffic's not bad, but if we continue growing at the rate we are, it's going to get bad. Northport comes online, that's thousands of cars that are going to be traveling additional on US 29. And they're not going to be traveling on these major corridors by choice. These are not choice riders that are
No,
traveling.
we're concentrating on this project here.
They're going to be coming through this project. Where do you think the people in North Point are going to go to business?
I will have to have a personal meeting one-on-one. I will give you some diagrams.
But you had taken this opportunity to say there's gloom and doom going on with these transportation projects. I'm taking the opportunity to say that there's actually, prosperity coming from these transportation
I'm
projects.
totally clinical on this, believe me. And some people have seen some of the work I've done, and I haven't shared it with you yet. Okay, and I'd like to share it with you, and then we can disagree or agree or whatever, okay?
We will continue to disagree.
Okay, well, if you're ready, tell me up front that we're going to disagree no matter what.
I think what Chip is presenting it makes a lot of sense, and to be proactive is critical. Too many communities have gone through similar projects, maybe for the better of the community long term, maybe not. But there have been too many mistakes around the country that we could learn from and make this project better if it goes through or as it goes through. And I would add to what Chip is saying and maybe suggest that there are some stakeholders involved in that process drafting. There's nobody that's going to have better thoughts about how to save their businesses than business owners themselves. There's nobody that's going to understand the community impact of a residential neighborhood than the homeowners association. So rather than dictate to them how you're going to help them, let them be part of the process and asking.
And please, let me, if I'm misstated, what we're working on is just concepts. You're exactly right, and that's the sole intent, is to bring as many people, and once you start putting pen to paper, the number of stakeholders that all of a sudden even become obvious that you weren't thinking about before, or numerous, letting them help design what the final product will be. And then I don't think even as the initial final product, it's going to remain fluid. It's going to have to change throughout the entire construction.
Well, construction will change throughout the entire construction. So, in concert with what Chip and the city and the county have been working on, VDOT has been working on a communication strategy. I'm staying tonight meeting with a small group of VDOT communications people tomorrow. What I'd like to see us do is between tomorrow and August the 28th, circle back to you and come back to this panel with that general concept for communication strategy. Because just like you said, Pete, some of those people that are interested are right here in this room, and I think are a good sounding board to go out to the broader public and business community for that input. And I understand what Henry's, you're tying your comment back to that first success factor, that after it's all over, let's have darn near the same traffic on those local streets that are going through that intersection today. So, John, did you have anything you wanted to add to what Chip said? Okay. Brad, did you want to add anything?
Just only that packet that Lou had. Are we going to provide that to the panel members?
Going to provide the packet. Lou has a general packet that was given to get up with a cup of coffee and go take a peek at right now. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at how do you draw more social media in. I've kind of randomly been tweeting stuff about the project, or I'll see something that Neil tweets and I'll tweet something.
Do you want to plug your Twitter handle?
No. It's pretty easy. It's my name. But should I be doing that, or we should be doing that in more organized fashion? And what's the public's opportunity for input if they don't want to go to a website? Should there be a hashtag at VDOT that people could send briefer comments to? So we're going to be looking at all of that stuff tomorrow morning a bit and continue. I think Ms. Rollison, who heads communications for all of VDOT, is just interested in sort of continuing to use this, I think, a little bit as a test ground for how VDOT might do public involvement and communications on a broader scale on other projects.
And the nature of social media is the interaction and the dialogue.
Exactly.
And without that comment section being public.
Right.
Makes it more difficult.
Right. I agree, and I don't think anyone disagrees.
Yeah, you retain the authorship as far as taking something that's inappropriate down.
Right.
But there are good strings that could
Yeah.
come out of it.
Yeah, they're
Here
definitely.
with the county, we wrestle with that because it also sometimes comes across as the county endorsing or representing those discussions that are going on. And it gets into that delicate balance. I'm just throwing that out there, that we were wrestling with that at the county level, that should we allow that kind of dialogue occurring on the county website? We'd like it to occur, but then people might say, well, we're condoning that dialogue if it gets to be a little bit nasty. I don't think that would happen here, but it's a difficult balance.
Oh, I can see it getting tested.
I think positive.
Yeah. No. So right on, Peter. I agree with you completely. There's, I think VDOT has really picked up the ball in an exciting way, and now I want to keep carrying that forward a little bit. I may have told you all this already, and if I did, I'm sorry. But after our first meeting of panel 1, VDOT, Ms. Rollison said, by God, we're going to live stream the next CTB meeting. Had never done it before, so they sent out a notice ahead of time or whatever that the VDOT Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting would be live streamed, and really didn't go through any bureaucratic mumbo jumbo with their CI. The concepts at RIO we'll have next time. If there's any other item you can think about that you'd like to see added, we've got 3 weeks here. So I'd just like to get an agenda posted at least 3 days before the meeting. We'll be talking between now and then. Okay? So if you think of any other points.
One
yes,
final
yes,
question. Does the RIO 29 overpass interchange come under the auspices of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's a great question.
Because
I would imagine.
I'm on that board, and,
No, because it's a VDOT project, or a VDOT right of way.
Supersedes our.
Yeah.
authority.
VDOT can do what it wants at its right way without having to ask the county.
Hopefully there's an opportunity for public input on these.
Signs, landscaping, I mean, we'd like to have some input.
Oh,
we
well,
may,
absolutely.
because
We're gonna
I'm
have
on
input
that board
into it.
and we scrutinize every other project that comes up and down the entrance corridor. And landscaping primarily and signage is vitally important to the overall appearance of Elmore County.
Well, I think there's a difference in having authority and being able to have an opportunity to look at something and review it and have input into it. So let's just.
Chuck, it's just me, but I'll bring it up with the rest of the supervisors. We might encourage ARB to take a look at the designs for that and give their official input as part of the process.
I think that'd be a great
Yeah,
idea.
even though there's
You're
no
on the
authority
board?
there.
Yes.
Yeah. You'll be.
I won't have to recuse myself, will I?
No, I don't think so. No.
Their standards are pretty high.
Are we in trouble? The budget just go up?
I've wondered about that many times, because sometimes VDOT does a marvelous job at designing retention walls and really nice things. And sometimes they just slop the concrete in there, and you look at it, and I can think of a couple of places in our community where say, my God, if this had gone through the Architectural Review Board, this would have never passed.
That's why I mentioned to Jim the trestles going up on the new bridge at McIntyre. That's a wonderful design concept and a very attractive appearance.
It's 30
for
years
our
of
community.
dignity.
Let's hope this won't take that long.
Well, that was not subject to approval of our BAR, but the council asked the BAR to review it and make comments, and they did.
And it helped.
On your panel,
John, there's no reason.
those rocks would have been real rocks, not imitation. You would have insisted on it.
And we did the same thing on the Best Buy sound walls. If they get built, our design, urban design group gave comment on that a couple of weeks ago. So.
That's a good point, Chuck. Thank you. And we'll work that into the review. Okay, if we are, it's a little after 4, if we can move on to the wrap up. John, any wrap up? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know the powers to be at VDOT, but for the business people here, to hear the lack of funding could not hook up Ashwood Boulevard or allow for a bridge that allows for future expansion. It would go a long way if we could move up that Best Buy ramp and get that done before construction starts. That really would help.
Yeah, we'll look at the schedule on Best Buy ramp and see what we can do. And again, the schedule has not been set. That's a conservative date to make sure that we don't put a date out there that's not.
Well, I understand, but if you could incentivize them or, do something to really have them motivated to get that done. One headache at a time would be nice.
We're going to take a hard look at that.
Yes, and in response to your other question about Berkmar extension and extension of Ashwood and connection, and we have a budget. We do not know until the price proposals come in as to what the contractor's bids are. And our approach to this is we will do as much as we can with the budget that we have. So if those bids come in very low, we may look to add some items, but we don't know yet.
One thing that the secretary made clear to me that isn't something I would abuse, but I certainly heard loud and clear, is that if I thought something needed to change, to suggest it. It doesn't mean that it will change, but you're going to formulate help me with a little statement there on moving up Well, on moving up the schedule, we got that, but on Ashwood and Fort Lane and the bridge, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And I hear what everybody's saying.
Chip, do you mind getting some of your staff to maybe get Pete some traffic numbers at that intersection? Some possible model numbers of who comes out of Asheville? Just to be able, for him to be able to share in his email.
We'll do our absolute best.
You're just stating that, and then stating the thousands of cars that use that intersection.
Had a bouncing baby girl earlier this week, so.
Yeah.
He's a little bit preoccupied now, but I think we have somebody else that may take him a little bit longer, but they can find it.
Brad, can you wrap? John, were you finished? Sorry.
No, I think I've said.
Okay, all right.
I'm good.
Thank you.
I said enough to upset Dave, so I cannot talk anymore.
I've heard from some people that said, what if the bid comes in higher than what your budget is? Will that kill this whole project? I mean, your lowest bid comes in $50 million or $60 million higher than what your budget is. What happens then?
Well, nothing good if it came in $50 or $60 million higher.
We do not anticipate that at all.
No, I wouldn't anticipate that.
We do not anticipate that bids will come in higher than our budget.
Hey, can we get somebody to help Pete had a...
I got a drinking problem.
Pete had... Okay, thank you, God, thank you.
Almost made it out.
Yeah, thank you, Pete, thank you. Good, Dave, go ahead.
So anyway, we do not believe that there will be an issue with that. If it were to happen, there are some steps that we could take to change some scope items, make some minor cuts or adjustments to the projects. It might require rebidding, but again, that's a very low probability in our risk analysis.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, John. Mayor?
I'm really pleased by the communication plan, and I'm looking forward to seeing it implemented.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
One additional thing that I've been asked about for some future discussion is how does the environmental assessment for the project fit in with the rest of the schedule?
Okay, we'll see that when we talk about the schedules on the 28th.
Okay.
Will that be good?
That'd be fine.
Okay. Okay. Eddie?
No.
Thank you, sir. Morgan?
I think it's helpful to get some clarification on some of the next steps today. I look forward to getting more of that clarification on the other two projects going forward. And then I think we're seeing it at this table again, but the point was made at the last meeting. I think any degree to which we can accelerate the Best Buy project, I think would be very helpful to everyone.
Okay. Chip?
So,
No. Each one, throw anything, anybody?
Throw it.
Look, thank you, and seriously, I'm working hard to be a good listener, and if you have any doubts about that or just want to share anything, you've got my phone number and email, and I'm real good, usually, about returning phone calls or responding to any questions. I thought this meeting today, for my own wrap-up, was good, because we got some good things out on the table that we're going to have to carry back and think about and evaluate and report back to you. And to the extent that we can influence some change, that's what we're trying to do here for the better. So thanks to everybody for today. Karen did let me know that she had a late conflict, so I'll make sure she gets all the information that came from today. If you want to leave your notebooks, you're welcome to. We'll put stuff in them for the next meeting. If you want to take them, you're welcome to take them. If you are going to leave them, just leave them right where you're sitting, so I'll make sure I keep them all straight. With that, thanks a bunch. Sergeant, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm really sorry we bombed out on our